Think about your phone for a second. If it broke tomorrow, what would you buy again? Be honest. If the answer was obviously the same brand, you just proved the whole video right, and we haven't even started yet. Some people don't just like their phone, they defend it. Like, personally. Someone brings up a rival phone at a party and suddenly your uncle is giving a TED talk nobody asked for. That's strange, if you think about it. It's a phone. It makes calls. It takes pictures of your food. Why does it feel like a personality? Turns out, it's not really about the phone at all. Let's start simple. When you buy something for the very first time, your brain treats it like any other decision. Pros, cons, price, done. But the second time you buy from the same brand, something shifts. You're not just buying a product anymore. You're confirming a choice you already made. And humans really, really hate admitting they made a bad choice. Psychologists have a name for this. It's called cognitive dissonance. It's just a fancy way of saying, I don't like feeling like an idiot, so I'll convince myself I was right all along. The psychologist Leon Festinger discovered this back in the 1950s, and it still explains half the arguments on the internet today. Here's how it works with a phone. Let's say yours randomly restarts once a month for no reason. If it's a brand you don't care about, you'll say, this thing is garbage. But if it's the brand you love, suddenly it's, oh, that's just what phones do sometimes. Same bug. Two completely different verdicts. Your brain isn't being logical, it's being loyal. And loyal is not the same thing as smart. Now let's talk identity, because this is where it gets a little wild. For a lot of people, their favorite brand isn't just something they own, it's something they are. Ask people why they like a certain phone, and some of them won't talk about the camera or the battery. They'll say things like, it's just who I am, as if the phone came with a personality attached. This connects to something psychologists call the halo effect, first studied by Edward Thorndike almost 100 years ago. Basically, if you already like one thing about a brand, your brain assumes everything else about it must be good too. Great design must mean great software. Cool ad must mean ethical company. None of that is actually guaranteed. But your brain doesn't like doing extra homework, so it just assumes the whole package is amazing because one part of it impressed you once. And once identity gets involved, switching brands doesn't feel like changing a product anymore. It feels like changing yourself. Nobody wants to feel like a stranger in their own life, so people stay. Not because the competition is bad, sometimes just because leaving feels weird. Now here's the sneaky part, the part companies actually plan for. It's called the ecosystem. Once you own one product from a brand, buying a second one from that same brand becomes suspiciously easy. Your headphones already connect, your watch already syncs, your files already transfer without you doing anything. It's smooth, it's convenient, it feels like magic. But here's the joke, and it's not a very funny one. That magic only works inside the walls of one brand. Step outside, and suddenly nothing talks to anything. Your headphones glitch, your watch acts confused, your files vanish into some digital void, never to be seen again. And so, without ever making one big dramatic decision, you just stay. This is what economists call switching costs. Not always money. Sometimes it's just hassle. And humans avoid hassle the way cats avoid bath time. It's not that leaving is impossible. It's that staying is just so much easier, and your brain always chooses easier. There's actually a good reason your brain works this way, and it goes back way further than smartphones. For most of human history, sticking with what worked was the smart move. If a certain tree had safe berries, you didn't go experiment with the next tree over just for fun. Familiar meant safe. New meant risky. That instinct never got the memo that we live in a world with 100 phone brands now. Your ancient brain just sees a familiar logo and quietly whispers, yep, that one's safe, get that one again. Add to that something researchers call the mere ownership effect. The moment you own something, your brain starts valuing it more than it did a minute earlier, just because it's now yours. Studies on this go all the way back to research by Daniel Kahneman and his colleagues, who found people demand way more money to give up an object they already own than they'd ever pay to buy that exact same object fresh. Translate that to brand loyalty, and you get people who won't just recommend their phone. They'll defend it like it's a family member. Which, to be fair, might explain more Thanksgiving dinner arguments than anyone would like to admit. So by now you might be thinking, wait, is this some evil trick? Not exactly. Nobody's tricking you into liking a product. What's actually happening is way sneakier than a trick. It's convenience, dressed up as loyalty, wearing an identity costume, standing next to a wall of tiny inconveniences whispering, please don't leave. Let's talk about the store for a second, because that matters too. Ever notice how walking into a certain phone store feels less like shopping and more like visiting a museum? Everything is spaced out. The lighting is soft. There's a person in a colored t-shirt who seems genuinely excited to help you, which, let's be honest, is a little suspicious for a retail job. But it works. Environment shapes how we feel about a product before we've even touched it. A calm, clean, expensive-feeling space makes the products inside feel calm, clean, and expensive too, whether or not that's actually true about the hardware. This is basic psychology, really. Doctors' offices are painted calming colors so you feel less nervous, even though the actual medicine hasn't changed. Restaurants dim the lights so cheap wine tastes fancier. Retail is no different. The store is part of the product. You're not just buying a phone. You're buying the 20 minutes you spent in a beautiful, quiet room where somebody complimented your choice before you'd even paid for it. Now, let's zoom out and ask an uncomfortable question. Is any of this actually about quality? Sometimes, sure. Some products genuinely are excellent, and that's part of why people stick around. Nobody's saying the whole thing is smoke and mirrors. But here's the twist nobody likes to admit. Once loyalty and identity are locked in, quality almost stops mattering as much as you'd think. People keep buying phones from a brand even after a bad update, a battery scandal, or a price hike that made absolutely no sense. If this were purely about specs and performance, that kind of loyalty shouldn't survive a single bad year. But it does. Over and over again. Because by that point, you're not evaluating a product. You're protecting a decision you already made. And maybe a little bit of your own identity too. And look, none of this makes you gullible. Every single human brain does this, including the brain of whoever's watching this video right now, about something. Maybe it's a phone. Maybe it's a car brand, a coffee chain, a sneaker company, or a football team you'll defend to the death despite them losing every single season. Loyalty like this isn't a flaw in your thinking. It's just how thinking works when convenience, identity, and habit all team up against logic. Logic doesn't stand a chance against three friends ganging up on it at once. And once all of that lines up, loyalty stops being a choice you make every day. It becomes the default setting. You don't think about switching. You just don't switch. Which, weirdly, is exactly how the brand wants it. Not because you were forced to stay, but because leaving simply never came up. So next time you catch yourself defending your phone a little too passionately at a party or feeling weirdly offended by a different brand's commercial, take a second. That's not really about the product anymore. That's cognitive dissonance, a halo effect, an ecosystem built to keep you comfortable, and a very well-designed store, all working together quietly behind the scenes. If it broke tomorrow, what would you buy again? You already answered that question before this video even started, and now you know exactly why.